Welcome, Julie. Let's dive right in on the NWSL Challenge Cup. All 9 teams will be involved. The top 8 will make it to a knockout round. Tournament should take about a month, and it should feature 25 games. Let's start, I think, with the good news, right? This makes the NWSL the first pro sports league, team sports, in the United States to announce a return-to-play plan. That's not insignificant, Julie, is it?
I don't think so. I asked Lisa Baird, the commissioner of NWSL, that very question. I said, are you first? Can you confirm that? And she's like, I don't know if we're first. Most important to us is we're safe. So she's saying that it's not important to them, but I do think that clearly coming out of the gate like this early gets them a lot of attention. I'm sure the sponsors love it. I'm sure CBS as a broadcast partner loves it. And they've brought on additional sponsors. They now have P&G, they have Secret, which is of course part of P&G, but they're sponsoring actually the Challenge Cup, and they also brought on Verizon. So I think that's all positive news for soccer fans and for NWSL.
Obviously good news. There are some complications as well, especially when it comes to some of the biggest stars, Julie, in the National Women's Soccer League. The U.S. Women's National Team Players Association and the U.S. Soccer Federation have agreed that each women's national team player may choose for herself whether to participate in the NWSL Challenge Cup. Look, I want to cut straight to the point. I've been at NWSL games where the national teamers are there, and I've been at NWSL games when the national teamers are not. The interest that this league draws when there are no U.S. women's stars on the field is much less. How big a problem, Julie, is this for the NWSL?
It's definitely a loss, Sebastian, that's for sure. But I will say they are going to have national team players. The question is how many, and they still are unsure about that because my understanding from talking to a lot of different people from the U.S. Women's National Team Players Association to U.S. Soccer to the NWSL is that there are a handful, and this is actually directly from Becca Rue, the executive director of the U.S. Women's National Team Players Association. She said there are a handful who are participating for sure from the national team. There are a handful who are most likely not participating from the women's national team, and everyone else in between is still undecided. So what that looks like come June 21st, when Lisa Baird said they are trying to finalize rosters, will be something that everyone will be paying close attention to. My guess is you will have at least a handful, if not 2 handfuls, of national team players who are not participating for various reasons. I have got confirmation as well that there will be no repercussions, there's no punishment, they still will get paid from U.S. Soccer and NWSL, which U.S. Soccer pays their salaries through the NWSL. So they will not be punished for not participating. But I do think there are a lot of undecided national team players right now.
Julie, this has always been something that, if not haunted, has at least affected the league, right? The idea that the women's national team players hold so much influence, so much power. Do you think this could be the beginning of a shift where maybe the NWSL players themselves rise in status?
I think it's a chance for them, as they understood very well, and the league has understood, because you are missing national team players so very often, whether it be for a World Cup, whether it be for a victory tour, whether it be for international call-up, that you have to have other stars. So it's a great opportunity with all these eyeballs that are going to be on women's soccer as one of the first out of the gates to highlight and showcase some of these other stars, because there's tremendous personalities. And again, we know there will be some national team players. I don't want to say there will be none. And it's not an all-in or an all-out situation for the national team. It's an individual decision that they're all respecting. But it clearly is a wonderful window for them to highlight some of their stars they have who are not national team players.
What about the federation role in all of this? They obviously want to keep the national teamers happy, but as you mentioned, they subsidize the National Women's Soccer League. They're kind of between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah, and they don't want to be seen, of course, as keeping this from happening as a partner with NWSL, but they also do not want to see players getting injured. So from talking to sources within U.S. Soccer, they are going to have complete control over minutes per player. So for a national team player to be allowed to play in this Challenge Cup, they will control the minutes. Meaning, if U.S. Soccer says Rose Lavelle only gets 60 minutes in this game and Rose Lavelle is not pulled by her coach with 60 minutes, Rose Lavelle will not continue to play in this tournament. Because the last thing, of course, they want to see is an injury happening to these players. And one of the reasons why these players have been so undecided in this is that there's such varying degrees of how they were able to have access to field. So some players haven't had any access to field and they're worried about injury, not having a long preseason leading into this. Some have had access, so they're in a better place, and it depends where you are in your career, age-wise as well. So it's all these factors playing in, and U.S. Soccer is trying to create a situation that's beneficial to all, but at the end, they have healthy players that are coming out of this.
Julie, I think we're allowed to talk about some actual soccer in all of this. Who's your favorite for the NWSL Challenge Cup? It'll certainly be an interesting change in the format competition.
I'm still going with the Courage. Back-to-back reigning champions. I'm guessing Paul Riley will rally a lot of his national team crew to come in. You're going to have a strong showing from all of them. They're a very unified group. So I am going with the North Carolina Courage. Sebi, who you got?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's foolish to bet in the NWSL anyway against anybody. But the North Carolina Courage, you kind of always have to pick them, the reigning NWSL champions. We'll leave it there for now. If you want more Julie, though, check out Laughter Permitted. It's her podcast, the latest episode with none other than Jessica McDonald, who catalogs her story, a harrowing upbringing all the way to World Cup champion with the U.S. women's national team.
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN+.